All right. Okay, so welcome to what I know is going to be a very interesting conversation about coalition building. Today we're going to explore the opportunity, the structural constraints, and how to find momentum in movements, how to resource them, how do you manage the personalities. We know that there are real obstacles to the complexities that we have to contend with, and also a really wonderful opportunity on the other side of it. So I'm super excited to be joined by this group of folks who are all doing the work of building coalition in different ways and are going to share with us much about their experiences, what they've seen, all of that. So welcome, welcome. I'm so glad to have you guys here.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't we get started by having you briefly tell us about the work that you do and your organization does.
I'll go first. Is this on? Hey, everybody.
Oh, wait, Kelly.
Can you hear? Okay. Hello, everyone. Can you hear? Oh. Hey. What a beautiful room. Right? It's a beautiful room. It's so beautiful to see the evolution of the tech we want. This is the third year, right?
Third year.
It is a staple now. It's a staple at South by Southwest. So I'm Kelly Burton. I am the CEO of Black Innovation Alliance. Woo!
Be up.
Yes. Black Innovation Alliance is an economic justice organization that leverages innovation and technology to close the racial wealth gap. At BIA, we do a lot because our work is focused on systems change. So we've done groundbreaking research. We launched the very first study on digital entrepreneurship. And I didn't say digital entrepreneurship focused on Black folks. I said the very first study ever. The second round, we interviewed and surveyed 900 Black digital entrepreneurs to better understand their lived experience. We launched the Congressional Caucus on Black Innovation, which helps to streamline conversations that were happening on Capitol Hill. Over the last 4 years, we've activated 36 distinct programs, projects, and initiatives. And the centerpiece of our work at BIA is our network, our innovator support organizations. There are currently approximately 150 organizations that are part of BIA, and they support 500,000 entrepreneurs and innovators of color. Woo-woo! If you're a member of BIA, can you raise your hand? Are members in the house? Yes! Yes! They are doing the hard work on the ground, y'all. They deserve spotlight, support, and money. And so a lot of what we are trying to do at BIA is redirect resources to those organizations. Our most recent initiative, the Trust Initiative, is going to allow us to deploy over $2 million back into communities of color through these organizations. We launched our very first cohort of 10 organizations where each received $125,000 in unrestricted funding. And we have 2 more. Yeah, that's good, right? Because a big part of it is getting money back out into the community and on the ground. By the end of it, we will have supported 30 distinct organizations and re-granted, again, upwards of $2 million. So we're really excited about this work and excited to be in conversation today.
Don't ever have to go after Kelly. I don't want to go after Kelly. My name is Emily Best. My pronouns are she, her. You're sweet.
Yes!
I am the founder and CEO of Seed and Spark, which is the #1 crowdfunding platform in the world for storytellers. And we've never spent a dime on social media marketing or internet marketing. Everything that we have done has been through coalition building in communities where creators are. And our goal has always been to help get resourcing to the very edges of the creator community to make sure that everybody has a fair shake at getting their story told on a big scale. And we work in partnership with about 700 organizations nationwide. And I realize, I'm not the Working Families Party, which is who I am replacing today. And so I'm sorry if you came here to see them and you get me.
We are so thrilled to have you here, Emily.
And then we just launched Motherboard, which spun out of 2 years with the Tech We Want. And we are really a coalition of organizations and projects that are bending the arc of technology towards collective good. And we are creating opportunities for storytelling and story experiences in person. So if you go upstairs, we have a People's History of Tech, which we present all over the world. Please go up and tell your story. And we're launching a book club on the back of a really incredible book called We Just Build Hammers. which is about the unsung heroes of technology and the science fiction that inspired them. And so if you want a roadmap for how are we going to get to the other side of this book is a really good example. And that's the work that I'm doing, I think. That's it.
Yes.
Man. Okay. So, I'm James Johnson Pyatt, principal and CEO of Urbane. We are a community wealth building venture based out of New York City and Philly. 17 years in, really focus on the opportunities to build wealth and change the opportunity points around asset building for communities of color and disinvested communities throughout the U.S. and the Caribbean. And I want to give a shout out to my coalition who's in the building. So everybody from Centers of Excellence say, yo!
Yo!
That's what I'm talking about, baby. All right. So our work really focuses on thinking about new assets. How can everyday people be able to tap in and invest in their communities in a direct way? So if you're talking about things like real estate, small business, et cetera, but really moving the arc of asset beyond just financial assets into other social and other sort of types of capital, and using the opportunity to think about coalition building through that mechanism for everyday people. So my coalition are the aunties in Flatbush, Brooklyn. My coalition are the folks in the trenches, and really spreading the message, spreading the word through place-based solution points around that piece of it. So we have a 10-city summit happening right now. So folks from Richmond, Boston, Norfolk, multiple points in the building making it happen right now. So we're really dreaming up the new asset classes that you guys are going to invest in hopefully in the next year or two, maybe with your platform. We're really thinking about ways in which community can invest directly in the things that make their neighborhoods happen.
Yes. I'm so excited. Can y'all hear me okay? Yeah, okay, good. I feel like I have to eat this microphone. All right. So let's start with the why. The question I want to ask y'all is why is coalition important? Why does it matter? And what does it look like when it's working well?
Okay, I'll talk about this from the creator standpoint, the sort of storyteller, creative community standpoint. When Seed and Spark enters into a community, our goal is to try to bring resources to creators that can help them make their work and realize their work. We did amazing workshops with Erica Alexander and Keep It Colorful. And actually, that's a really good example. Is we did this Keep It Colorful crowdfunding rally, where what we wanted to do was get as many really meaningfully diverse, demographically, geographically diverse stories told in this certain period of time. And we went around the country and partnered with local organizations who were already doing the work of resourcing and educating creators. And really what we were doing is just bringing kind of an extra layer, some pizzazz, some excitement. Erica fucking Alexander, the things that really galvanize the community to come out and be together. And I think what we discovered is that in bringing something as an offering to the local community builders, they would then help us make it better than we had ever imagined, and more relevant and more localized and more interesting. So they would tell us where is the right space to hold this. Where I don't know, if you go to a new city and you don't understand the traffic patterns, it's as simple as is this taking place in the right place for the community? Is it going to be relevant? Is the stuff that you're talking about over the head of these folks, or does it not actually connect to the needs in this community? You won't know unless you start to have those conversations. And it also makes us not come in and sound like we know the solutions in every community when there are already people there building them. And so working in partnership with organizations all across the country, we have now the most demographically and geographically diverse pipeline of creators who are funding anywhere online. 65% of the projects are queer stories that are getting told in places that are incredibly unfriendly to queer stories. And it's only through partnership that we were able to even seek those relationships with those creators. So I feel like the core of coalition building is to not assume that your idea is brand new and that there aren't already people on the ground who are trying to do the things that you're doing. Because if you sort of like blast into a new city and be like, I'm here to solve the tech problem, all the people on the ground solving the tech problem are like, screw you specifically. So I think if you actually want to do work that impacts people, your nexus point, the greatest nexus point, are the folks in the community who are already doing that work in different ways. And what I've discovered is that you can sometimes, as that outside pizzazz, bring people together who might not otherwise be working together. So also, as a coalition builder, your ignorance about some of the local myths that might have happened between organizations can actually be a healing force if you are coming with a lot of curiosity and generosity. And I really like that. We have had that experience in multiple cities where organizations were like, well, we don't usually work with them, but we really like what you're doing, so we will in this case. And then they continue to work together because it turns out like they're not as bad as we thought. So I think that's the other piece about coalition building, is if you're approaching it with authentic curiosity, it can be a healing agent in community building as well.
Beautiful. James. I feel like, James, I answer this question, but also I have to like let the audience in on a little secret. So in the 2 days before this event, there's been a small but mighty group of people, many of them sitting here in the front of the audience, that have been meeting for the past 2 days at the organizing and activating of James here, to really start to think about how they even federate the work of building innovation hubs, innovation districts, innovation orgs in their cities, which I think is just so incredible. And I really want to make sure that you touch on that in your answer. I'm sorry, I gotta shout y'all out. Like, I see Jessica, Nia, Dr. Stacia, Blair, Kristen, Dominique. Did I miss anybody?
Oh, there's folks in the back.
I love
sure.
all of y'all. Okay.
Dion somewhere too? Yeah.
Somewhere around here. Go ahead.
Yeah, see, I was gonna talk about pension funds. Can I talk about both?
You can do both. Do both.
All right, so quickly, one really awesome project where we had to put together a lot of odd bedfellows was a project we did in New York in the previous administration, to think about where pension funds as a mode of paying for things could bring together affordable housing advocates, pension fund board members from the New York City Retirement, pension board, and again my aunties who were in my incubator in Brooklyn. And the idea here was simply, there are lots of mechanisms that aren't being tapped at the institutional level around capital. And what's missing here is where everyday people have a chance to talk to the folks who control that money. And so what we were talking about was, okay, well, what would you want to do if you had an economically targeted investment happen? And so the Comptroller of New York has a 2% slice of what they control in the pension fund sort of construct to focus on economically targeted investing in New York City. The issue was, usually it was a developer or some sort of institutional sort of class asset manager going to them saying, hey, I want to do X, Y, Z. Caribbean vendors had never come and said, hey, can I get an ETI for what we're trying to do? So part of the idea here was, can we create the data case that there is economic opportunities in smaller scale projects if you federate them, and create these sort of micro hubs to macro hubs of innovation in place. And so part of I'll connect the dots. We came out with a report that really showed you can make your 7% return union if you did X, Y, Z with a interesting sort of I'm getting jargony, a fixed income strategy that included community institutions and community anchors as an investment vehicle. So unfortunately, our candidate of note did not win the next election, but we still have that idea, and so it's being carried forward with the work that we're doing with folks here in the room, where the idea here is really to take the best and brightest placemakers throughout the country and say, you have hubs of innovation in your communities. There's no reason we have to go to Silicon Valley to think about how we innovate at scale. We can do it right here in our neighborhoods. Can you take the best and brightest that's happening, again, in multiple cities and federate them, create a common charter and create a common investment tool that we can sort of pour into that piece of it. So, we have a private equity fund that's sort of a neighborhood REIT concept. The idea is, can we layer that over multiple other sort of capital opportunities? But really, can you play places, and we were talking about this yesterday, where you can really incubate liberation for people, right? Can you find a place that's liberatory that lets you meet your purpose and your passion? And that's really the inciting part of making a center of excellence hub, And from that place, you can do anything. And so, what we're meeting about is really thinking about the tools and the systems that have to change. The tossing of the master's tools when it comes to finance, this idea, we were talking about this, the idea of value in and of itself. Who defines value? What's that sort of middleware, that middle class of risk adjusters and underwriters and curators who determine what your assets are worth? When it act like it's a science, when it's really just a matter of keeping a patriarchy and keeping a racial structure in place. And so what does it look like to reimagine all those middleware tools, train up people to take on the opportunity to think about making new valuation methods and having it come from a neighborhood perspective. So I hope that ties them together. Yeah, so that's what we're doing. That's the work we're doing. And hopefully by the end of Monday, we'll figure it all out.
Thank you. Thank you, James. Kelly.
So, this is our story. This is our story, honey.
Hi, baby.
Hi, baby. So, in addition to Ania being the brilliant mind behind the tech we want, she is also my BIA baby mama. She's the co-founder of Black Innovation Alliance. And so this year, BIA is going to be 5 years old. Can we shout it out for BIA?
Yes.
My baby that the team keeps telling me, stop calling BIA a baby. BIA is a big girl. But I tell folks it's the most grown-ass baby I've ever seen because we be doing the most at Black Innovation Alliance. But now my baby's going to kindergarten, and she be telling me all the ways, Mommy, go away, because, but BIA has many mothers.
She has so many opinions.
So many opinions, yes. But the answer is, when you and I were sitting in a coffee shop in San Francisco 5 years ago, almost to the day,
Yeah.
we realized we are all on the struggle bus together. Innovator support organizations, ecosystem leaders who are out here doing this work, supporting entrepreneurs and innovators. We didn't have funding, we didn't have resources, we were funding this stuff out of our savings accounts and out of our checking accounts. Many of us, our relationships were in crisis because partners were like, why are you spending all this money on supporting these people when we need the money for the house? So we said we're gonna come to South by Southwest because we always connect with amazing people who are doing this work. And we're gonna have them over for croissants and orange juice. But that was in 2020.
Yes.
And we know what happened in March 2020.
March 2020. There was no croissants and juice.
There were no, needless to say, there were no croissants because everybody was stuck in the house. And, for us, the purpose behind Coalition was like, we are operating in isolation, and it is hurting us, and it is harming us. And we're going to be inhibited in our ability to support the entrepreneurs and innovators that we want to support if we do not create some sort of collective front.
That's right.
So much of what we've been trying to accomplish through BIA is how do we bring together the folks who are operating in this ecosystem, us all get aligned, us all get information, us build some sort of collective heft so that we can have hard conversations and establish some things that it takes numbers in order to establish, right? I think for us, living in this society where we're told it's about meritocracy and self-reliance and individualism, there are so many things when you come together in coalition that you have to unlearn. And one of the things that we're realizing at BIA is how do we build the muscle? How do we build the core competencies that enable us to do this well? But so much of it over the last 5 years have been learning on the job and taking L's. Members will tell, we take L's, but we come back and we be like, okay, how can we learn from this? That was an L, how can we do better next time? But what I will say about coalition building, it is no crystal stair. Like, if you are building coalition, it ain't the easy road. Hey, who said that? Hey, ain't nothing easy about it. And sometimes when we have conversations with our funders and our partners, the assumption is that collaborating is easy. No, collaborating is hard. Building coalition is hard. Coordinating is hard. Getting everybody on the same page is tough. Because especially when you are doing this hard work and you don't have all the resources that you need in order to do the work, now you asking me to come together and meet to have a conversation about what exactly? It's kind of like that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm trying to keep my doors open and you trying to get me to think about aspirational long-term stuff. That's hard work. But it has to be grounded in values. It has to be grounded in mission. It has to be grounded in linked fate and the belief that we are all in this together.
Wait, can I say something about that really fast?
Wait, because you're going to jump ahead to my next question. I'm going to get to that. But first, let me summarize for the audience the good things before we start talking about how this shit is hard.
Hard it
Okay.
is.
All right.
So
I'm
hard.
like, I'm like, let's do like we're doing a SWOT analysis here of coalition building. Strengths. Things get better. It expands our understanding of the issue. Partnership, where there's someone already working on something, especially to what Emily said, that there are often folks who are in the community that are already engaged and have something that you can maybe add your little extra sauce to or figure out what your part is, but we definitely want to make sure that we are plugging into the work that has already been happening. To James's point, there's economic opportunity through a federated approach, especially when there are these different places in your city that you can be connecting with, and not just bringing the people, but actually bringing people together in space. Also, to Kelly's point, the opportunity to redefine stories, language, and have a shared culture, a shared story, and building collective power, which is very, very important. Now, I know they're ready to get to this question, which is like, what makes this work challenging? So we've already heard a little bit about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. People are like, y'all are asking me to come build the future where I'm just trying to pay my bills right now. Like, I don't have time. Emily, go ahead, chime in.
Well, okay, so what I was going to say in response to what Kelly said is that the thing that often overcomes that piece of like, I'm already so tired, is if you bring people together and they come away being like, I didn't know I needed that. Right? Which is, I think, what the Lighthouse is very much, is like, we're at South by. It's exhausting. There's so much programming. But then we get here and we look at who's in the room and we have the conversations and we're like, oh my God, I needed that so badly and I didn't know. So I do think that there's, the thing about it that's hard can also be turned into its greatest strength, which is if you are coming in to provide a space for these people who are working hard to feel seen, to feel connected, to feel less alone. I think those things are transformational and can overcome a lot of the like infighting also that happens, you know? It's just a reminder that like it's better when we hang out. And we don't have to agree on all of the how or even all of the why, as long as we are both supporting the work getting done in, you know, many different ways. From a hard perspective, like, so we build mostly, my work at Seed and Spark is primarily focused on building coalition to build new independent film and creative infrastructure. And so that means there are startups and there are like stone cold capitalists and there are arts organizations and film festivals and activist organizations and creators who are just trying to piece together a living. There are so many different stakeholder needs in the room. And sometimes I think that like the greatest boon to my career is that I spent the first 17 years running restaurants. And there's no greater pirate ship of a business than a restaurant, because the cooks, they want it to be slow. And the waiters want it to be busy. And the bartenders want everyone drunk. And the security guards would prefer that they weren't, right? Like everybody has different desires inside a restaurant. And somehow you gotta get all those people like sailing in the same direction. And I think like if you are not deeply, generously listening to the needs of the people you are trying to build coalition with, and willing to be frank about the very different perspectives that they are bringing in, whether it's I'm in this for stone cold capital reasons or I'm in this to better my community reasons, it can get really messy and ugly and people get upset and they feel competitive. And so I think being as frank as you can about what are you in it, why are you showing up to build coalition? And really deeply examining the layers there, deeply listening to your own motivations. Because like it sounds cool to build coalition, but it is not for the faint of heart, as you well know. Yeah, I think it can get really competitive in the resource-constrained environment. And so if you're not leading by example in saying, here are the outcomes that I'm seeking, here are the things that are really important to me, yeah, it can get sticky and messy. And mean, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, all those
fair?
things. Yeah. It's navigating ambiguity. I think when you're on a journey with a coalition, like you can say you think you know where you're going. If you have coalition coming together, you don't know where you're going. You know where you want to get, and that's a key difference between those two things. And then what happens when you're building trust in that context? And so your trust barometer is constantly sort of turning and turning and turning and turning, and you're gaining and gaining and gaining and gaining. You take that L, boom, you lose the trust, you're starting all over again. And not only are you trying to start over again around your journey, you're also trying to deal with the interpersonal relationships that may have been eroded or may have been sort of seized up. So now you have two journeys that you're taking on, right? And then you take another L and you have, okay, I remember what you did last time. And so all that sort of back and forth occurs while you're still trying to get to this end game. And so, at a personal level as a steward, you're saying, okay, especially when you have coalitions that are not naturally aligned in the front. If you're trying to get to a common goal, you're trying to define, and to your point, you're coming from one direction, you're coming from another direction, and you're trying to find that one thing that brings you all together to get to a better place. You're constantly going through a very circuitous path to get there, and having to have the perseverance to sort of make that happen. And frankly, if you really care about the folks that are in that coalition, you're feeling that at an energetic level as in person, right? And so it's taking a toll on you, and trying to monitor your own self-care, monitor your own health as you're making that work happen. It's a lot. And then you layer on resource allocation. You layer in the fact that, there may be a longer arc than you may have sold people in the front about how to get to the end. So it's just navigating the process, but then also trying to get people to buy into the fact that it is a process, and that half of it is about what we're building together in the context of building, right? And I think the best I'm thinking I'll answer your next question, but the best coalitions have bought into a process that is ambiguous but can be glorious, right? And just running into that space knowing that, I don't quite know what's going to happen at this thing, but I bought into the vision, or I bought into the collective action that's sort of happening. But the buy-in part is really it. It's the trust. My executive coach tells me all the time, with company culture, you put up your values on your website, but your company culture is every 90 days. Bottom line is, if you have a toxic company culture and you talk about rigor and integrity on your website, it doesn't matter. And same thing happens in coalitions. You can put up your factors of what you care about, but the 90-day clock that happens over and over and over again, if you're not monitoring that journey and saying, okay, are we aligned with what we just said? That truism as a steward, right, is a thing that I think, is a big struggle, because you're trying to get to the end game and the individual iterative process point. And so, oftentimes the person or the entity that might be the most vocal or the most upset or the most frustrated or the one that's not seen, and therefore they're causing the issue in the coalition, that pain point really is the opportunity if you're doing it right, or obviously is the fire starter if you're doing it wrong, right? So.
Word. Okay, I feel like this is really good stuff. I want to actually extend this a little bit by asking, what are fantasies that people have about this work that you would like to dispel right now? For instance, I would say that one of them, for me, is that, coalition, or, people come together to do collective action, and, everybody has to agree on everything, right? Or even this idea that, we're all going to be, braiding each other's hair and baking cupcakes and singing Kumbaya, that we all have to believe the same things to be in coalition. What would you say are some? That face is everything.
This is my fantasy, that it don't take no money to build it.
Preach.
When we think about the ways that people come together in community, what is the primary way that people come together in community today? Social media, right? Through technology. When you think about where you find community at scale, it's through social media and technology. For some reason, the assumption is that for us to aggregate people, to get them coordinated, to get them aligned, to update behaviors, to get them to act in coordination with one another, that don't cost no money. And it's something that folks like BIA should be doing for free. And because there's not necessarily a widget attached to it, that it doesn't have any value. But what you're doing when you're building coalition is you're building social capital. So when I think about BIA, it's about the work that we're doing in the moment, but what gets me most excited is I know that the relationships made through BIA will outlive BIA. That's our legacy, right? There are people in our network that are collaborating on some dope shit right now that I don't know nothing about. And I'm happy about it. It's beautiful, right?
And so that's my biggest, but it always come back to money for me, probably at the end of the day. That's what I'm on my soapbox about, because this work, building the future, takes
Yes.
money. A lot of times, those of us who are on the progressive side are expected to push back on all of these things coming out of Wall Street and all these things coming out of Silicon Valley that are infinitely resourced.
Yeah.
And then we're supposed to build the counter resistance on fish fries and chicken dinners.
The couch cushion money.
Okay, the couch cushion money. No. We need real money if we are going to be the resistance. We need resistance money. Yeah. Can we get some resistance? Amen. Amen. We need some resistance money. Hallelujah.
Yes, and I also think it's a fantasy that coalition building starts at scale. I think coalition building starts one-to-one. And it takes profound investment relationally, which I think, this thing about company culture resets every 90 days, I'm gonna like put this on my wall, because that was like a huge insight. I think that's such an interesting way to think about it, that like, the cycles are actually quite short, and the relationships have to be meaningful, and they can start around a dinner table. They won't scale around a dinner table, but they can start around a dinner table. And so I think sometimes people get coalition paralysis when they're like, they look at coalition building as the systems change. It's not the systems change. It is creating the conditions for systems change. Right? But that has to start with like real relational investment, and making sure that we are willing to, get through hard times together. And it doesn't, like, you can be doing a lot by getting 4 people in your neighborhood around a dinner table. So I'll give you just one very tiny example. My children go to a Title I funded school. If you don't know what Title I is, it is a potentially no more existing pot of federal money that goes to public schools where more than 50% of the children get free or reduced lunch. And it is a way of building equity in our education system. It's been around for 70 years. My kids' school is Title I funded. It keeps the classroom sizes small. It provides teacher development days. It gives a ton of resources in the community. And none of the parents really know about it. In fact, I would learn that like our PTA treasurer didn't know about Title I funding. And if it goes away, we're gonna lose all of these resources. The classroom sizes are gonna get bigger. Everything that we love about our little public school is gonna shrink. And so I just started literally having dinner with moms. And I'd like to say it included dads, but let's be real about who's getting around these tables.
No
I'm
comment.
sorry, right now. That's throwing shade on purpose because I wish some of them would. But getting moms around the dinner table to talk about this so that they then go tell their friends, and they then go tell their friends, because when the bad stuff starts happening, when the Title I funding goes away, I want them to understand where those conditions are coming from and not blame our local government officials because now they're having to raise taxes to make up for this money or whatever. Like, coalition building can start around a dinner table around your one school, right? And then that becomes the group of people that also is doing get out the vote work, or that becomes, so I think that it's a unit of resilience that doesn't have to be at grand scale. And if you are doing it at grand scale, that represents such a massive investment of time, energy, and resource, and should be valued by millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars.
On commas.
Hundreds of them.
I'll be quick with mine. I think there's a fantasy that it's about the cult of personality, that there are folks who are the leaders of coalitions that really make the trains move, and that's not what happens. If you're going to make coalitions work, it's the technocrats, quote unquote, that are behind the scenes building the infrastructure. It's the third in command that's sort of doing the ego setting for the folks who are trying to get the win. It's that trust building that happens behind the scenes. And when the shit gets thick, it's like who's brokering the deal at the end of the day, and it's probably not the person in the front, right? And I think the fantasy is when people want to fund coalitions, they want to get involved and get invested, get excited because they're seeing the leader, so to speak, truth to power, and that's awesome. But that's not how it works. Like when it comes down to a brass tacks, and so it's not about the mouthpiece per se. Although the mouthpiece can be really important, and it could also be that technocrat in the right context, and that just makes him Superman. But if you're not that, there is power in the fact that you have folks that aren't seen that are really the bedrock of coalition building.
Okay, so some of the things that we heard there is that this takes deep, generous listening and different perspectives, asking yourself why you are showing up, acknowledging that it gets competitive in resource-constrained environments, that trust is hard to build and very easy to destroy, and that this work requires a lot of perseverance, that it can be a longer arc of time before you start to see those big wins you're looking for. It's important to have some accountability to what you say. I like this every 90 days frame that you gave, James. To Kelly's point, it costs money to organize, especially in building up that social capital, that we need that resistance money, as she said. And I love this piece also that Emily dropped in about coalition building doesn't always start at scale. It can start at the dinner table. And not least of which is about, it doesn't have to be this cult of personality. There are so many people behind the leaders that you see that are making these things possible. Amen to that. Okay, so we have a few minutes left. I wanted to see if anybody had any questions. Yes, Jocelyn with the mic can walk around. Any questions in the audience? All right, we got one here. Oh, one there, and then Blair. Yes.
Hey everyone, my name is India Fordham. I am the Director of Events and Experiences at Black Innovation Alliance. Yo.
Hey girl, hey.
And my question for all the panelists would be, what are you most excited about in terms of coalition building as it relates to the world being on currently fire in the United States of America?
Juicy question.
I came across this quote, and it resonated with me so deeply. And I'm going to jack it up a little bit, but it's something like, the darkness of the tomb is also the darkness of the womb.
Oh, wow.
That part. Right now, it feels like death, and something new is being born. And I'm here for it. Mm-hmm. That's what I got.
Yes.
I care a lot about who owns things and making sure that by the time we're done this fire, is a much different tapestry of who owns. My man Elon, he just came out with the Starlink. What I think is fascinating is the assets that we think about typically investing in versus the assets that folks who have the means to talk about Starlink, small satellites. There's a whole set of assets that we don't even think about by and large if the average person. And I think in the next 4 to hopefully beyond this, there's a whole sea change around what you can tap into and own. And the opportunity to own things you're not typically used to owning gets you in rooms you're not typically supposed to be in, which means you start to inculcate opportunities to talk about coalition building in the ways we're thinking, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You go down the line. So use ChatGPT, wherever you use to search things, look up nano and small and micro satellites, look up cell tower REITs, look up, you're talking about mineral rights and what's happening with Ukraine. All the things we think about in our world that whether or not you want to argue you should even own these things is a different question. But let's say, for sake of argument, you do. This is the new frontier. And right now, we're not playing with the right tools. But this is the opportunity point right now when you have somebody who's trying to strip away the last bits of what you can own to really come back and create a whole new regime around ownership. That's the opportunity point I see in the fire right now.
I think spite is a powerful motivator.
And I think there are a lot of people that all of a sudden are like, can I swear?
Of course.
No, these motherfuckers will not. Not on my watch. And they are starting to be more cooperative and less competitive than in the past. I'm seeing this in the film industry a lot right now, that all of a sudden we're like, oh wow, we need brand new infrastructure if we're not just going to have been shouting into the wind about, diverse representation, for the last decade. And this shift in the Maslow's hierarchy of need, I think, has made people start to work together in more powerful ways where they might have previously seen themselves as competitive. And so if there is to be, and I can't even talk about it in terms of silver lining, right? Just like, it is a powerful motivator when the potential or near-term consequences are quite so dire that people are like, yeah, we can put that stuff aside and just work together now. So that part I actually find really exciting, that people are responding to this time by turning to their neighbor and being like, how do we do this? That's like cool.
Yes.
If for a terrible reason.
So the excitement, the silver lining, darkness in the tomb is also darkness of the womb.
Ooh.
There's new opportunities for ownership, and also that fury making folks more cooperative at the end of the day. I really want to see if I could, do you have a quick question? No? Okay. Well, then let me do this, because we have 90 seconds, and I'm not going to be the one that makes us late today. I'm going to ask each of you to give us one final takeaway for the audience. What's one thing that you would want folks to do to be a part of, to build, to support, whatever it is that they can do, what you want them to have in mind around coalition building? What's one thing?
Take care of yourself first, because you cannot pour from an empty vessel. Amen?
Okay.
Amen.
Coalition building does not start with answers. It starts with a central question. So if you want to start to coalition build, you need to approach people with a question and a ton of curiosity. That is what will bring people together, not trying to build coalition around a solution you have already devised.
Coalition building starts at home. Get off your phone, take some time, talk to your people, figure out what you want to build together.
Word. And with that, I want to thank my wonderful panelists today.